Welcome to Quarantine Fireside Stories with Miss Amanda. Getting my little s'more ready. You guys ever made s'mores before? Well, today we're going to read a story. Curious George Goes Camping by Margaret and H.A. Rays. Here's the title or the front of the book. And then your title page. What is he making? Is he making a s'more? This is George. He was a very good little monkey, and he was always very curious. This weekend, George and his friend, the man with the yellow hat, he has on yellow everything, had special plans. They were going camping. Have you all ever been camping before? What did you take with you? Did you eat a s'more? At the campsite, the man with the yellow hat unpacked their gear. While George looked at all the tents, he saw tents for big families and one just the right size for a puppy. There were even tents on wheels. Would you like to help me put up our tent, George? The man asked. What kind of tents do you see? George was happy to help. It would not be hard to set up a tent, he thought. But it wasn't easy. George, why don't you go fill our bucket with water at the pump? His friend suggested. We'll need it by our campfire later when we roast marshmallows. You guys ever just roasted marshmallows? So good. How do you like yours? Miss Amanda likes hers toasted brown. Not burnt, just kind of toasted brown. And it has to be like all over. So good. Marshmallows. George loved marshmallows. He couldn't wait to try them roasted. Now don't wander off and get in trouble, the man warned. But George did not hear him. He was already gone. Sorry for the little harsh light there. At the pump, George worked the handle up and down. Soon his bucket was full. On the way back down the trail, he saw a family packing up. George watched a little girl pour her bucket of water on a campfire. The fire sizzled out. George thought, that looked fun. What do you think? Do you think that was fun? He poured his bucket of water on the next campfire. Hey! Yelled a camper. We weren't finished with that yet. The camper began to chase George, but George didn't mean to cause trouble. He only wanted to hide. He ran into the forest as fast as he could, but the camper's footsteps followed close behind. George ran faster and faster. The footsteps came closer and closer until suddenly, what do you think happened? There's him pouring the water and him getting chased. What do you think happened? They were passing George. Why, it was not a camper chasing George now. It was a deer. What fun to run with a deer. Forgetting all about the camper and the marshmallows, George ran after the deer. But a little monkey cannot run as fast as a deer in the woods. Before long, George was lost and all alone. He felt tired and stopped to rest. At first he was worried. He was very far from camp. But there was lots of... What do you think there was lots of? other animals to keep him company. Have you guys seen my other animals keeping me company? He saw a lizard sunning on a rock and a squirrel chattering in a tree. Chatter, chatter. Have you ever heard that? Then he saw the tail of a black and white kitty peeking out from underneath a bush. He was curious. Good old George, always curious. Would the kitty like to play? George gently pulled the kitty out. What do you think would happen if you pulled a kitty out of the woods? Do you think it's safe to do that? Not safe. Don't try this at home. But it was not a kitty. It was a skunk. It was scared. The skunk lifted its tail and it sprayed. Phew. The spray smelled awful. The animals tried to get away. George wanted to get away too, but he could not. The smell was all over him. How would he ever get rid of this awful smell, he wondered. Too bad he could not take a bath in the woods. Do you see the skunk? You guys ever smelled a skunk before? It's not fun. It's not a pleasant smell. Skunks are very pretty animals and they're very good for our environment, but they don't smell good. Then George had an idea. He could wash the smell off in the creek. George jumped into the cold water. He splashed and he scrubbed. Do you think that helped him? Do you think the smell went away when he jumped in the lake? But he was still smelly, and now he was wet too. Oh no, George. But what could he do? George thought and he thought. If he climbed up a tree to dry off, would the smell blow away? What do you guys think? Do you think the smell would blow away? No. Even dry and high up in the tree, George did not smell better. Poor George. He wished he hadn't wandered off so far from camp. He wished he were roasting a marshmallow with his friends. Suddenly, George heard footsteps heading towards him. Someone was coming. There's George jumping in the lake and climbing the tree. Now he's up top and he hears people coming. It was the forest animals, but they ran right by him. They had seen something scary, and George saw it too. It was a fire. Oh no. Do you think it's good when you see a fire in the middle of the woods? Not at the campsite. It's not good. George had gotten into trouble for putting out one fire. But this fire wasn't in the campground. This was an emergency. Quickly, George climbed the tree and grabbed his bucket. He scooped it full of water and in the creek. Then, being careful not to spill, he climbed back down and swung from the branches through the trees. When George got close enough to the fire, he reached down and he poured the water on the flames. Out went the fire with a big hiss. Just then, George's friend rushed out of the forest with a ranger. There's George putting it out. George, he called. I was afraid you would be here. It's a good thing you were. George, said the ranger, we saw smoke from the campground, but you put this fire out just in time. George was glad to help, and the man with the yellow hat was glad to see George was safe. But he had a funny look on his face. George, what is that smell? What was the smell? Do y'all remember? Back at the campsite, George's friend helped him get rid of the awful smell after a strange bath in tomato juice. George smelled fine. Then the man with the yellow hat invited the ranger to cook dinner with them over their small campfire. Fires can be nice if you are careful, said the ranger. George agreed, especially for roasting marshmallows. So I'm going to show you, this is on the back. This is a scrumptious s'more. And there's the directions for your parents if they would like them. Some safety things. 1, never have a real fire. This is a pillow. 2, never have a real fire in your house, that is. This is a pillow. Unless it's in a fireplace. 2, never have a fire without your parents. 3, marshmallows are delicious, especially when you make them right. 4, Miss Anita has some tips. 1, chocolate is great, just chocolate. But if you really want to try a new adventure, try them with Reese cups if you're not allergic to peanut butter, or with Rolos because they have the caramel, however you say it, and it melts it. So good. So there are some tips, parents. Also for you kids, there's some things for you to try, something maybe a little new if you've had s'mores before. If not, I encourage you to go and try to make a s'more. You can make it over a campfire. You can even make them in your oven. I love you guys, and I miss you.